Hello and welcome to Odds Serie A Matchday 22. Dani Fisichella, congratulations for the new title for Inter Milan in the Super Cup. But we have Juventus on top of the table, and
yes,
we have Derby d'Italia, Inter Juve.
Yes, I mean, Inter are getting used to it. Third Super Cup in a row. It was a new format. They took the cup to Saudi Arabia. Well, I hope the Saudis enjoyed. Inter won in the last minute against Napoli. We will see whether it was worth it or not. Inter got a few million euros, which are always welcome. But because they didn't play last Sunday, Juventus now are top of the league. And you're right, in 2 weeks' time, it's Inter against Juventus. But first, Inter have got a very, very difficult trip to Firenze this weekend. So, yeah, I mean, things are changing very quickly in Italian football.
Okay, remember guys, as always, to press the like, subscribe. Let's go on with the show. And Danny, before we start, it was not all good things in Italy this season. Tell me, this week, tell me.
No, it's a very sad news, the passing of legendary striker Luigi Riva, Gigi Riva, the famous striker who played pretty much all entire career with Cagliari, won a Scudetto there in 1970. He passed on Monday, age 79. He still holds the record of goals scored with the Italian shirt, 35 goals, was runner-up in the World Cup in 1970, scored in the famous semi-final, Italy-Germany 4-3 in Mexico City, and he's been remembered fondly in all the Italian media. He was an example of a man, of a player. He played his entire career in Cagliari, refused the big money of Juve, Milan, Inter. He really represented an island, Sardinia. And that's where we start, actually, this weekend with Cagliari, Torino. I'm sure it will be really, really emotional, the beginning of the game and through the game for Gigi Riva, the mythical figure with the number 11 shirt.
Indeed, I'm sure it will be a special game then before the kickoff in this Cagliari-Torino. Danny, is also very important for the home team because they are only 1 point away from relegation after the defeat against Frosinone. But we know that this season at the Sardinia Stadium, they've been very good, 4 wins and 2 draws in the last 6 games. For Torino, it was a draw against Genoa, totally expected. It's only 1 goal scored in the last 5 away games. This could be easily a draw as well.
It could be, or it could be easily an under, and that's what I go for. Under 2.25 goals, 181 with the Asian line. So if it's only 2 goals, you win a half a stake. Look, Cagliari are unbeaten in 5 games at home, but they are depleted up front. They're without Luvumbu at the African Cup of Nations. They will be without Oristanio. Pavoletti is suspended. And, yes, they do produce great comebacks at home against Frosinone and Sassuolo, but those are teams that are a little bit naive and a little bit unexperienced. I don't think Torino are going to allow that. I think Torino, they're very solid. The return of the Rodriguez and Gigi from injuries has strengthened their solidity. They're the 3rd best defense in Serie A, 18 goals conceded only, 10 clean sheets. But yes, away from home, the form is dreadful. Only 6 goals scored away from home, only 1 at Salernitana and Lecce. They're somehow not clicking, despite playing with 2 strikers, Sanabria and Zapata, supported by Vlasic. But they got a lot of quality in midfield. Sometimes they seem a little bit reactive. Yes, everything suggests this is going to be an under. Only 5 Torino games have been over 2.5 goals. Only 5 Torino games have been both to score. By the way, you can find all these great stats on the Oddspedia website and check for all the leagues, all the stats that you need to inform yourself before placing a bet. But, in 8 games of Torino, there's only been 1 goal scored. Last season, they were really good away from home. They won 9 games. So far, only 2. I can't see Torino losing here. They might win the 1-0, 2-0, but I think it's going to be an under. That's why I stay with under 2.25 goals, 181.
Is the worst team in Serie A for over 2.5 goals, Torino, so an under. is always a good choice in Torino's games. On Saturday, we have 3 games. Atalanta Udinese is the first one. Atalanta rested at the weekend, but they are challenging for the Champions League spots because they are in really good form, especially at home. They thrashed Frosinone. They are coming to this game from 5 consecutive wins at home, and Udinese, Dani, lost to Milan, and not only that, it was the worst image, of course, of the weekend. The images at the Dacia Stadium, and also, if we only focus in the football pitch, only 1 point away from relegation. So they've improved slightly in the last weeks, but not enough.
The racist chants that Mike Magnan suffer obviously are not representative of Udinese as a club, one of the most multicultural clubs and a club that works a lot to promote integration. But yes, those scenes, those chants, even if it was 2 or 3 people, they're just not acceptable. I'm sure Udinese is going to face a stadium ban, at least 2 or 3 games. We will know soon, but this obviously can dent their hopes of salvation. They are very, very leaky. They conceded 35 goals, only kept 3 clean sheets. They're good on the counter, but they don't have enough resources coming from the bench. So as soon as the top players like Samardzic or perhaps Luka, Lovric, they start tiring out, really, they seem to have no replacements. 8 Udinese games so far this season, I've seen 4 goals or more, and often they are on the receiving end of that. As I said, they are smart on the counter-attack. When they played in Firenze a couple of weeks ago, they had plenty of chances and earned a good draw. But they've only won 2 games so far this season, both 2-0. And it's unlikely they're going to go to Bergamo and not concede, because Atalanta are flying. They're playing so well. They scored 3 goals against Frosinone in the last game after 19 minutes. As you mentioned, they are rested, so fully focused on this game. They won in the Coppa Italia knockout against Milan. So yes, full of confidence. Won 4 of the last home games, and also they got the full squad now, really, apart from Hans Attenborough, who's injured. Gasperini can count on absolutely everyone, including their record signing, El Bilal Touré from Almeria, which we haven't seen. He suffered a major injury in the summer, but now we're really curious to see if he can add a little bit more pace, a little bit more unpredictability. Without forgetting Scamacca, who's getting back to his best form, and then you always have the likes of Muriel, Miranchuk is playing well, De Ketelaere, the Milan fan wondering, who's this guy? We haven't seen it last season. So far already 7 goals, but my favorite of all is Tien Koopmeiners. He's such a complete midfielder, great shooting, he's on penalties as well. So, Koopmeiners to score, I would like it. Atalanta, 3rd home attack, 22 goals scored. I think they're going to win this one. Probably is a high-scoring game. I can't see them really winning just 1-0, but if you look at the results they collected against struggling teams at home, they've been so good. 3-0, 2-0, 2-0, 5-0 against Frosinone. Just check out the results. Again, on the Oddspedia website for you. Atalanta Genoa -190. If they win by only 1 goal margin, you get your money back, so no problem there, but I think they'll win 3-1, let's say.
Very open, the 4th spot
Yes.
this season in Serie A. Fiorentina, Lazio, Atalanta, Bologna, Roma, Napoli, all facing, challenging, and fighting for the 4th spot. Atalanta is only 1 point away from Fiorentina, so if they win here, they will sleep in Champions League spots. Juve, Empoli is the next game. Juve, they see the table and they see themselves on top, and this is always very good news for the Bianconeri. For them to win the Scudetto, Dani, I'm checking now in Oddspedia, is 3.5 right now. The odds are going down and down because...
If you think Juventus are going to win it, take the odds now, because they're going to go down. I think after this weekend, they're going to go down a little bit. Yeah, before Juventus Inter, they're going to go down.
I still don't think they are going to win the title, but they are coming from 5 consecutive victories in Serie A. Vlahovic scoring goals, and this is very important. The opener, for instance, in Lecce, and now they face Empoli. You mentioned in our previous video that you were very sure that they are going to bounce back with the new manager, and they beat Monza comfortably.
Yes, and Nicola is still a long way before they can be safe and happy, but Davide Nicola, the specialist in salvation, done it time and time again with Torino, with Salernitana, with Crotone. The first thing he did when he came to Empoli is switch to a back three. Now, in Empoli, they haven't played with a back three for a long, long time, which basically means it's almost a back five, but that makes them much more solid, and they were much more aggressive as well, pressing high with the wing backs, and Monza a bit soft, and they managed to win 2-0 despite all the absentees. You know, they are without a lot of players, Empoli, that are experienced and good players. Caputo, Destro, Kovalenko, Bastoni. Of course, these are Baldanzi, who is the best player. These are all players that they would have counted on, but they managed to make the most of what they got, and 3 goals from Żurkowski, and that's a good start for you. The first Polish to score a hat-trick in Serie A. So something that Zibi Boniek or Milik or Zielinski have not been able to do. So congratulations to Żurkowski. But now they travel to Juve, top of the league. So this is mission accomplished for Juve. That's exactly what they needed to be. They needed to be in touching distance of Inter before the big game, with the opportunity to even go +4 before Inter kicks a ball in Florence. This is a massive psychological boost, and you can tell that the team is a little bit more free, is playing with less weight on the shoulders. Don't get me wrong, they still struggle to break down organized team, at least at the beginning. Lecce had a very good first half and created some issues to Juventus, but then in the second half, the quality came through. The fact that they're full of confidence. Vlahovic already 5 goals in 3 games. McKennie is in top form. Cambiasso is playing really well. And with the addition of Ildiz up front, really, Juventus have gained more control and a better partnership with the Serbian. Wins number 300 for Allegri in Serie A. Only Nereo Rocco and Trapattoni have won more. And Juve are first, top of the league, for the first time since August 2020. 6 teams have scored more goals than Juve at home, so they are not a high-scoring but if you look at the recent results, you know, 5-0, 6-1, 3-0, they're not just going for the 1-0. The next games, again, for Juve are easy. Inter, not easy, but then Udinese, Verona, Frosinone. You know, comes the end of February, they might be 6, 7, 8 points ahead. You know, I wonder if Allegri will continue talking about the 4th spot. Juventus to win the first half for me, 185. They will go out firing and they'll win the game. Yes, they'll win the game and they will win the first half, 185.
And of course, they don't have European football, and Inter, they have this tie with Atletico de Madrid that is going to pay a toll. I'm 100%
I'm sure.
In Serie A, next game is Milan-Bologna. Very important victory for Milan in the crazy game in Udine, because it's the 4th consecutive victory in Serie A with that late goal scored by Okafor. So 12 points distance with the 5th spot. Danny, they are taking a lot of points in the back to focus on the Europa League, a competition that, as you said in our previous videos, they could win and they could focus if they keep getting points in Serie A. This one is going to be tough because Bologna are also rested. They didn't play at the weekend and they are doing a great season, although it looks like they put the foot out of the accelerator. 4 winless games for Motta's team.
Yes, perhaps they are suffering from high altitude, you know, flying high. Only 1 win away for Thiago Motta's team at Salerno, -4 goal difference when they travel. And the issue is lack of goals. We said it in previous videos as well. They don't score many, for considering how much they keep the ball and how many chances they create. And there are a lot of players that are still with 0 goals or 1 goal. The likes of Salemakers, Posh, both, by the way, are going to be absent. And yes, the top goal scorer is Zirkzee, who, by the way, is returning from suspension, but nowhere near enough the amount of goals scored to really consider themselves a challenger for top 4. Can it change? I know they're looking for a striker in the January market, Castro or Vélez Sarsfield. Maybe that could help. But this is going to be a tricky one for Bologna, who, by the way, have already scored 4 goals at San Siro this season, 2-2 against Inter, then 2-1 win in Coppa Italia. Can they go there and continue that good run? Well, they could, because I think Milan are a team that is improving, of course, but they still got issues at the back. They do lack sometimes a little bit of focus. The problem with Milan is when the rhythm goes down, they really can't keep the ball that well, and they find themselves in a pickle. They do make individual mistakes. I mean, the goals that Udinese score, they came out of nothing. But then the reaction is so good. The mentality is so good that they got players, the likes of Giroud, that if they decide the game has to be won, they do manage it. They are so dominant in the area, in the air as well. Then, you know, the likes of Okafor, Jovic, they start leaving their marks. And that was the 100th win for Pioli with Milan. If you look at the points tally compared to the previous season and better season, they are there or thereabouts. So the season is not over at all for Milan. They're not going to challenge for the Scudetto. But yes, I think that the Europa League target really could be important. Only 5 goals conceded at home for Milan, second best defense, but more than 50% of the games have been both to score and over 2.5 goals. This is the team in Serie A who's been involved in more games with over 3.5 goals. So good numbers, but yes, sometimes they let themselves down a little bit when they need to defend. I think it's an over as well. Over 2.25 in this case, 188, only 2 goals, you win half a stake.
Well, they have run in the Europa League. Of course, it's winnable. They are a favorite. So let's see what happens with Milan for sure. I guess they will play Champions League football again next season. And this is very important for the Rossoneri because for so many years they didn't play Champions League. And now it will be, I think, the 3rd season in a row for them playing Champions League. So it's very important. Danny, on Sunday, Genoa, Lecce, key victory for Genoa in Salerno. So now they are 8 points away from relegation. Not that big news for Lecce. They lost to Juve, as we mentioned before. They are only 4 points away from Verona. If we have to put the money on a team, no, my money would be on Genoa to win. It's 2.18, not that bad.
It's not a bad, and they're always hard to beat Amarassi. So let's rephrase it. My money are on Genoa not to lose this one. They only won 3 games, Amarassi, though. Again, it's the lack of goal scorers that could be concerning, although Gudmundsson has already scored 9 and assisted 2. They're unbeaten in 6 games. Retegui has found the net as well. And, you know, it wasn't easy to win at Salerno, also because they had a very short squad. There were only 2 senior players on the bench. They've sold Dragusin to Tottenham. Spence debuted, but for this one, they're going to be without 2 important players, Badeli and Frendrup. So there is a little bit of rejigging to do for Gilardino, but nonetheless, Genoa are a very organized team. Lecce, again, I can say the same. They're organized. They are. I mean, you can say there is a style of play with the wings very wide, playing this 4-3-3 formation. But I don't think they got enough quality to support that style of play. Perhaps switching to a back 3 or playing with, you know, with only 1 striker could be more beneficial when they have to fight for salvation. Look, Lecce won 3 games in the first five matches of Serie A. And since then, they only won 1 against Frosinone in lucky circumstances. But if you look at the numbers, this is the lowest matchup for over 2.5 goals this weekend. You wouldn't find any other 2 teams this weekend with less over 2.5 goals. So yes, probably it's going to be an under. And if it's an under, I do trust Lecce maybe to get a point. And as I said, not Genoa not to be beaten, but what pays more, the 1x or the x2? The x2. So let's go for the x2, which pays 182.
Surprise. Then no away victories for Lecce this season. Monza Sassuolo is the next one. Sassuolo rested also at the weekend, and they are only 2 points away from relegation. Their last game was the defeat against Juve, 1 win in the last 7. Also, Monza in bad form, only 1 win in the last 6 and conceding 8 goals in the last 2 games. Danny, difficult.
Well, yeah, I mean, they look flat, Monza. They don't look at the races at all. With Inter, I mean, reckless formation, playing with 2 midfielders behind the main striker, so giving Inter the advantage in midfield. And against Empoli, they really they went there, almost they were not interested, and conceded 3 goals against Italy's worst attack. So really, really bad signs for Monza, who lack, that drive, that unpredictability they had last season. They look a little bit flat. They keep the ball well, but they don't seem to do much about with them. Sassuolo, on the other hand, only 1 clean sheet, second worst defense in Serie A, conceded 21 goals away from home. And against Juventus in the last defeat, 3-0, it was typical Sassuolo. They play very open, they play attacking, they play good football, but yes, against top teams, most of the times they lose. So no matter what is at stake, Sassuolo always plays the same. It can pay dividends, it cannot. They got the 5th best attack away from home, so they score an awful lot of goals away from home, which tells you they are always on the front foot. Away from home, Sassuolo score more goals than Lazio, Fiorentina, and Roma, yet they're only 5 points away from salvation. So it's really, really dangerous for Sassuolo. But if there is a team that can surprise you when things are not going well, that one is Sassuolo, which, by the way, lost the reverse fixture against Monza 1-0 after beating Inter and Juve. We were sure they were going to win against Monza, and they didn't. Now we are kind of sure they're not going to win in Monza. I'm going to back them with an Asian handicap plus 0.25, 197. So if it's a draw, you win half a stake. But I think Sassuolo come into this game slightly better than Monza.
Well, let's keep talking about the relegation battle. Verona, Frosinone, with Verona in the relegation spot. They lost to Roma 2-1, but in the last minutes they could have got a point in the Olimpico. In the last home game was a victory against the Empoli. Frosinone, Dani, was very important. The victory against Cagliari, coming back from behind, because they put 5 points with the relegation zone, and they were coming from 5 consecutive defeats before that comeback.
They needed a win. Yes, they weren't winning since November, and they were start shipping far too many goals. Now with 22 points, things look better for a team that has got a lot of quality, not just Sule, who scored 9 goals already this season, but the likes of Berenecea, Caio George, Brescianini. These are all good players. The problem is that sometimes they lack experience, and their defense needs to be strengthened. Frosinone are trying to acting on the transfer market, getting a couple of players there. I mean, the addition of Zortea from Atalanta is already good, Bonifazi as well. So if they invest a little bit more, they could stay up, but they will only stay up by outscoring oppositions. It's unlikely they're ever going to win a game 1-0. So it'll always have to be a 2-1, 3-1, which are very fine margins really to play with. And yes, they only they didn't keep any clean sheet in the last 7 games. Only 1 clean sheet away for Frosinone, 0-0 at Udinese, and there have been at least 2 goals in 19 out of 21 Frosinone games. So it's always high scoring, it's always entertaining, but against top teams that's got more quality, they're gonna suffer. Verona, they have to be applauded, because despite selling 7 players, and that these are not just the fringe players, but some of the best players, from Doig to Gonj, they went to Roma and they almost got a point in the second half. Had Juric not missed the penalty when it was 2-0, probably they would have got a point. Only lost 1 of the last 5 at home, Verona, and their away form is bad, but at home they have been scoring lately. Now, they are in serious peril of going down if they continue to strip the team down, and let's see what kind of replacement they take. But I can't trust Frosinone to win 2-0. I can't trust Verona to keep a clean sheet as things go with the team in transition, hence both to score 179.
Well, Verona with 17 points right now in the bottom 3, but they are only 1 point away from Cagliari, Udinese 2 points away from Sassuolo, so everything is very open also in the bottom part of the standings. But let's go to the Champions League fight. Dani, Lazio, Napoli, very important game for the European spots. We left Lazio in a very good form before the Super Cup. In the Super Cup, they were wiped out by Inter in the semi-finals, but in the Serie A, Dani, 4 consecutive victories, 1 point away from the Champions League spots since they are not playing Champions League, whereas Napoli, I'm not sure if the Super Cup, Dani, helped. or not, because probably, yes, they beat Fiorentina, they competed against Inter, even reduced to 10 men because the numbers and the feelings from the Serie A were really bad.
Well, it helped in the sense that Napoli rediscovered their fighting spirits against Fiorentina and Inter. They played two defensive games. They were very cautious. They were very pugnacious. They played, yes, on the back foot, if you like, but knew how to find an opening against Fiorentina. Look, the 3-0 against Fiorentina is way too much, is exaggerated. Actually, Fiorentina won the expected goals there, missed even a penalty, and Napoli scored 2 late goals with Zerbin, but they knew there was going to be an opening at some point, and they managed to find it. Finally, Mazzarri is playing with a back three, with Di Lorenzo, Jesus and Rachmani, and the two wingbacks, Mazzocchi and Mario Rui. I think they're better suited for Napoli style of play. Completely the opposite of what Spalletti was doing, but forget about that team. It won't come back anymore. That nice possession and meaningful attacking. Also, what can you do when you haven't got two of your best players, Zamboanguissa and Osimhen? You have to play like a small side, if you like. You need to be conscious of your limit, and that's what Napoli did. But for this one, they're going to be without Cajuste, Barascelia, and Simeone, all suspended. Comes to Lazio, it was clear they didn't want to play the competition. Sarri said at the beginning, it's only for the money. They were trashed by Inter. Probably the motivations went there. They didn't look as audacious, but also as focused as they were in the league when they were coming back of 5 consecutive wins, if you had the win in the derby. They won the last 2 games against Napoli, Lazio, and often Sarri was able to outsmart Spalletti. What I said about Lazio in previous video is that they become more of a harmonious side. They also be able to manage better the tight margins, but they're going to be without Immobile, Zaccagni, probably also without Castellanos, so it's going to be Pedro in the role of false 9. I can't see a lot of goals. Probably a Lazio win by 1-0, but I'm going to stick under 2.25 goals, 187, only 2 goals in the game, you win half a stake.
For Tati Castellanos, Danny, I guess in the summer when he left Girona for Lazio, no, was good news. We are going to fight for higher standards, and now he's...
Well, not really.
He sees his teammates in Girona fighting for the title. Well, but
yes,
he had also a run in the Champions League, and he's
if the Spanish referee let them win the title, because you know I've seen a goal scored with your elbow this weekend. So I mean, we'll
thanks,
see.
Danny. Well, don't confuse the shows, but even Mitchell said that he's not seeing anything strange, and
okay. Good.
Difficult. Depend on the angle. Could be shoulder, could be elbow.
Okay.
It depends on the angle. Next game is Fiorentina Inter. Last game we have on Sunday. Tricky game, as you said at the beginning, because perhaps they are in -4 with Juve before the kickoff for Inter Milan, but everything is very positive, Danny. Also, we have to highlight Lautaro's season is being great, scoring the winner in the last minute in the Super Cup.
Yes.
This is the Capocannoniere in Serie A with 18 goals, and Fiorentina had slowed down a little bit, still in Champions League spots, but having some bad results lately. This is a very good game.
It is a very good game, and it is a game that obviously would then project us into Inter Juventus next week. So it's massive, and I'm expecting Inter to start the game already at -4, so with 2 games in hand, so there'd be pressure on them. Look, Inter against Lazio were flamboyant, scintillating, was the best game of the season. They dismantled Lazio. The crispness of the passes, the movements, the confidence. The only problem is they only scored 1 goal in the first half. They should have scored 3 or 4, and then in the second half, they finished the job. And the contribution also from players coming from the bench, Frattesi popping out with another goal, was massive. Then obviously the final was a little bit of a no-show, but I think that's understandable. Inter played only 3 days after in a situation that hardly is going to be repeated in this season. You know, you don't normally play a semi-final and a final after 3 days, even in nation competition. So it was difficult, but they had the best of Napoli in the end. They kept knocking on the door when they played against 11 men. they suffocated Napoli. And again, the changes from the bench. This time we had to say, well done to Alexis Sanchez, who really had a good impact, and Lautaro in the end scoring the last minute. But yes, Inter come with a lot of confidence. Look, I think this Supercoppa for them was a problem, was an issue in the middle of a season. But the only way to make the issue go away is to win it, and they did it, so they come back happier and with the high morale. There is no doubt that Inter is the best team in Italy. There is no doubt they have improved from last season. So you have to consider them always favorite. Although for this game they're gonna be without two very important players, both suspended, Çalhanoğlu and Barella. So 2/3 of the midfielders are not gonna be there. Massive game for Aslani, who hasn't played much, and for Frattesi. Let's see, because Inter, of course, needs to use all his squad if they want to go far in all the competition. When it comes to Fiorentina, disappointing against Napoli because they had the ball a lot of the time, but again they lack precision. They maybe should have scored the penalty with Jonathan Icone. Maybe Jonathan Icone should not have taken the penalty at all because Beltran has got a better scoring record, but Fiorentina got a problem. They are often naive. They keep the ball well, then they struggle to break down teams that are really compact and concede silly goals. Their scoring issues have started since Nico Gonzalez has been injured. Since the Argentina is not there, they only scored 6 goals in the last 7. And some of those 1-0 wins against Torino, against Verona, they've been a little bit lucky for me. Look, I think Inter won't be easy. Probably they'll have to grind out a 1-0 result. Lautaro to score. I like it as well. I stick with the under 2.5 goals, 196. Last season finished 4-3 for Inter. I think it will be nothing like.
Great game, this Fiorentina-Inter, very tough one for Inter before the Derby d'Italia against Juve the following week. And for Monday, we have Salernitana, Roma. Salernitana, another defeat after taking the lead, the third consecutive defeat, 2-1, and in the 3 times they took the lead against Genoa. At home was the last one. Danny, for Roma was the first game for the Rossi. It was a victory. They suffered a lot in the second half. We saw Sharawi, and I don't know if we saw some things completely different from the Mourinho era.
In the first 20 minutes, Roma played more vertically, and they played more attacking, also because they were playing with 4 attacking players: Dybala, Pellegrini, Lukaku, and El Shaarawy. El Shaarawy gave 2 assists, Pellegrini scored, Lukaku scored, so there were good signs. But as the rhythm slowed down, it was clear Roma were not able to sustain that sort of pressure. And in the second half, they struggled. They looked exactly as they've been looking for the whole season, unable to keep the ball well. As soon as Dybala came out, the light went off. And in the end, Verona threatened quite a lot. Roma almost finished on their knees, but it was the first win of 2024, a good start for Daniele De Rossi. Let's see if they continue to play in the front foot also when they travel. They only won 2 away games so far this season. So this is going to be interesting to see. They're going to be without Paredes, suspended, still dealing with a couple of injuries. Smalling is still not back. Few players in the African Cup of Nations, Azmoun at the Asian Cup. So, it's a difficult moment for Roma. But as I said, the next few games are winnable. After this, there is a game against Cagliari. If they manage to get 9 points, out of a sudden they're back into the fight for the top spot. But yeah, let's be absolutely clear, to beat Verona at the weekend, you didn't need to change the manager. Probably Mourinho could have done it the same. Salernitana lost against Genoa, probably deserved more. Hit the bar with Candreva when the result was 2-1. Again, punished by individual mistake. This time is Lovato, who gave away a very silly penalty. And these mistakes are recurring against Juve, against Napoli, against Genoa. 3 defeats for Salernitana, all 2-1. That tells you they are competitive, but they let themselves down by silly mistakes. Look, Roma away record is awful. They conceded in 15 or 16 games, or 16 in 17. I mean, they only kept 1 clean sheet in the derby. So yes, they always concede away from home. I think they're gonna score. I can't really imagine Salernitana keep them at bay for 90 minutes. Both to score for me. 209 for the Monday game.
Well, Salernitana grabbed points from the Olympico at the beginning of the season. I remember Candreva scoring 2 beautiful goals. A player, former Lazio player, scored against Roma. The second one was a great goal. Well, Danny, tell me your best bet or safe bet for this weekend.
For this weekend, my best bet is Atalanta to win at home against Udinese 156.
And the ACCA?
The ACCA 3 selections as last week. I stick with Atalanta. Atalanta Asian handicap -1. Then Sassuolo traveling to Monza, Asian handicap 0 for Sassuolo. And finally, Lazio Napoli, Lazio Asian handicap -0.25. The total odds is 9-18.
All right, Danny, best of luck for everyone. Enjoy Serie A and see you next week, Danny. Bye-bye.
Ciao Edu, speak soon. Bye-bye.